You know, when that deep dive request hit my desk, I gotta say the title alone, it kind of hooked me. Death Squared. I mean, come on, talk about dramatic.
Yeah, it grabs you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what John B. Calhoun, he was going for that with his 1973 research paper.
Mhm.
The one looking at what happened to this isolated mouse population.
Right. Right from the start, this Calhoun guy, he's not messing around. But okay, before we get to all that death squared stuff, can you, like, set the scene for us? He builds this, and I'm not kidding, rodent utopia. He even called it Universe 25.
And utopia is like the key word here.
Yeah.
Calhoun really designed this whole thing, this space, to take care of every single thing a mouse could ever need. We're talking unlimited food, all the water they could want, climate control, those nice comfy nesting materials, and get this, absolutely zero predators, none, just roaming around.
Okay, I'm already, like, seriously jealous of these mice unlimited snacks, always the perfect temperature. Where do I sign up? But wait, this is where things get kind of wild.
Exactly. He wasn't just trying to build a paradise for these mice and, like, call it a day. He wanted to see what happens when the only thing stressing them out, the only limit to their, growth was, well, more mice.
So wait, he just, like, let them loose in this mouse Disneyland and just, what, watched chaos unfold? Give me the play-by-play here.
Pretty much. So picture this. 16 sectors, all connected, and they're decked out with all the best stuff, all those luxurious mouse amenities we talked about.
Yep.
And he starts with just 8 mice, 4 pairs, just to get the ball rolling, and then lets them do their thing.
And being mice, I'm guessing doing their thing means multiplying like mice?
Bingo. Calhoun, he called this stage Phase B, and it was basically boom time for everyone in Universe 25. They were living the good life, let me tell you, and reproducing at this crazy rate. I mean, their population was doubling every 55 days.
Whoa, now that's what I call a baby boom. But coming here, this is called death squared. Not exactly like mice gone mild or something.
Right. Well, Calhoun, he started to notice something. Even though these mice had it made, like really made, something was changing in their little utopia. It started small, subtle, but then, well, as the population kept exploding, things escalated pretty quickly.
Let me guess. Things started getting a little less utopian.
Let's just say Mouse Disneyland was starting to feel a bit crowded. You see, remember those awesome nesting boxes Calhoun built?
Yeah, those were like top notch. Even I was impressed, and I'm not even a mouse.
Well, here's the thing. With more and more mice all competing for the same prime real estate, those males, they got super territorial aggression went through the roof. And not just towards each other either. The females were usually pretty chill. They became like crazy protective of their nests, even aggressive toward their own babies.
Whoa, so much for a mother's love, huh? I guess even in Paradise, everyone's still fighting over who has the best house.
Tell me about it. But, and this is where it gets really weird, there was this whole group of males, totally healthy, like perfect specimens. They just checked out. Calhoun called them the withdrawn males.
Withdrawn males. Okay, now that sounds a little too familiar, especially for, like, anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed by city life.
Yeah.
Did the same thing happen with the females?
Some of them, yeah. They'd retreat to these, like, less desirable nesting areas, even when they had a whole litter of pups. But just like those withdrawn males, some females, they just lost their maternal instincts.
Yeah.
Their reproduction rates totally tanked, and they just stopped. Like, they weren't interested in any kind of courtship. Imagine a whole generation that just gave up on dating. That's basically what was going on in Universe 25.
So the whole, like, social fabric of mouse society just started to unravel, even though they had everything they were supposed to need to, thrive.
Exactly. And this whole breakdown, this disintegration, that's what Calhoun called the death of the establishment, the first death.
Hold up, the first death? I thought we were talking about death squared here.
We are. You see, Calhoun, he identified 2 different types of death happening in Universe 25.
Yeah.
The first one, the one we're talking about now, is this social behavioral death, like the death of their whole society. But then, well, there's the second death, and that's the, physical death of all the mice themselves.
Okay, now I'm starting to get why this whole thing is called death squared. It's not just about, like, bodies piling up. It's about the whole system, their entire social structure falling apart before that even happens.
Exactly. And here's the real kicker. Calhoun, he thinks this has some serious implications for us, for humans.
Yeah.
You see, he saw a connection, a parallel between those, stressed out and overwhelmed. And
Well, I think I see where this is going, and I'm not sure I'm ready for it. Okay, so how does a bunch of, like, stressed out mice in a fancy cage relate to, well, us? We're not exactly forming these, like, squeaking hordes fighting over cheese scraps in some bunker, right?
Yeah.
At least not yet.
Not yet, no.
Hmm.
But Calhoun, he didn't just pick mice randomly, you know? He saw these same kind of things, these patterns of things falling apart in other species too when things got too crowded. It's
Hmm.
like there's this tipping point where everything just goes haywire, even if everyone has enough food and...
But we're not lab rats, right? We build these incredible cities, we
Right.
write poetry, we've got like the internet and everything. We can't just be hardwired to like self-destruct when things get a little crowded, can we?
That's true. And Calhoun, he knew that. Said humans, we have this special ability to create what he called conceptual space. It's like, think of it as the mental and social stuff. We build our ideas, our art, our relationships, all that makes us human.
So we're good then. Our Spotify playlists and our VR headsets, that's going to be enough to save us from turning into Universe 25.
It's not quite that simple, Calhoun. He saw this conceptual space as, like, our saving grace, sure. But his work, it makes you wonder, what if there's only so much space? Like, what if our minds, they can only handle so much density, so much complexity before things start to, come undone?
Okay, now you're making me a little nervous. Are you saying that even with all our fancy technology, deep down, we're still just animals? Like we're programmed to just totally lose it when things get too intense?
Think about it for a sec. You see these behavioral sinks
Hmm.
popping up everywhere in our own societies. The isolation, people feeling lonely in these huge cities, everyone glued to their phones and social media. People can't even disagree about the weather anymore without it turning into a whole thing. It's like our own conceptual space is starting to feel the strain.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Sometimes it does feel like we're one bad day away from, like, turning into those crazy territorial mice Calhoun talked about.
And that's exactly it. His work, it's not saying density is always bad. It's a warning. It's like he's saying, hey, pay attention to what happens when you pack too much in, when you forget that people need connection too.
So are you saying we should all, like, ditch our smartphones, move to the woods, and start a sourdough starter or something?
Well, hold on a sec. That's not what Calhoun was getting at. He wasn't saying we need to abandon everything. It's about finding a way to live well within these denser environments,
Right.
to build places where people can connect, where they can thrive mentally and emotionally, not just physically.
So how do we actually do that? Where do we even start?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's not one easy answer.
Hmm.
But what Calhoun's work does, it gives us a place to start asking the right questions.
Okay, so if we're not all going to become, like, off-the-grid hermits, what are the right questions? How do we stop our own little world from turning into, well, Universe 25?
Well, we got to start thinking differently about how we design our cities. What if we actually put people first, like prioritize community and well-being, not just how many buildings we can cram in? Imagine cities with tons of green spaces, community centers where people actually hang out, neighborhoods where you can walk everywhere and, like, actually run into your neighbors instead of just staring at your phone.
Okay, that sounds, like, kind of idyllic, but also kind of impossible. Cities are already these concrete jungles. It's all about maximizing space, fitting as many people in as possible.
It's true. The reality is we're a ways off from that.
Yeah.
But that's exactly Calhoun's point. When we only care about efficiency, about profits, we forget that people need connection. They need space to breathe.
So how do we change that? Where do we even start?
It's not just one thing, right? It's not just about building more parks or bike paths, though, hey, those help.
Mm.
We got to think bigger picture: access to good education for everyone, affordable health care, systems that actually support people when they're struggling. All those things matter. They make a society that can actually handle density without, like, imploding.
So it's not just about the physical space. It's about, like, creating a sense of possibility,
Yeah,
making people feel like they belong, even when they're surrounded by millions of others.
exactly. Remember those withdrawn mice?
Yeah.
The ones who just, like, gave up on everything. Calhoun, he said that's what happens when people feel lost. Like they don't have a purpose, like they don't have any control over their own lives. That's when those behavioral sinks start to look pretty tempting.
It's kind of terrifying when you put it like that. If we want to avoid becoming those, like, disengaged mice, we got to build a world where people feel hopeful, like, empowered, even when things are tough, right?
Exactly. That's the thing about Calhoun's experiment. It's dark. Yeah, but it's not. Like a prediction. It's a warning, a wake-up call. He's saying, hey, look, this could be our future, or we can choose to do something different. Those mice, they didn't have a choice, but we do.
Wow, it's a lot to think about, but important stuff.
So, like, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this? What's the big takeaway?
We have a choice. We can ignore all the warning signs, keep going the way we are, and risk ending up like those mice. Or we can use everything that makes us human, our empathy, our creativity, our ability to work together to create something different. It won't be easy, but hey, the stakes, they couldn't be higher, right? No kidding. Well said. That's some serious food for thought. Next time I'm navigating a packed subway car, I'm definitely going to be thinking about those mice and maybe brainstorming some ways to make sure we don't end up going down that same path. Until next time, folks, keep diving.